It's time for the big topic in lesson 1, null values and how to clear them. So, if it's been a moment and you've taken time between sessions, just because you have code up in your notebook and it's been run doesn't mean that it's actually active. It will eventually time out. So it can often be a good idea just to go to runtime, restart, and run all. That way you can ensure that all variables are defined like df. You don't have to do that, but if you actually start coding and you see that they're undefined, that could be something that you try. Okay, what I want to do is go in here and add a new text header called cleaning null values. Go ahead and do that with me. You can press Shift Enter to run it. You don't actually have to when it's a text header. It just shows you how it'll look. And I'm going to go to the top because what I do is when I add usually a header later, I said, you know what, I'm actually going to use headers in this notebook. So let me go ahead and create an initial one. So I'll go to the top of the data frame and I'm going to add a new text header here as well. Move it up to the top. And I will call this one exploring data. And I would encourage you to also add more information because, your notebooks, they just look more professional, they're more readable. If it's been a long time, it'll help you understand them down the road. So I can add another text cell, or I could do it under there. And I could just say that, I'll say like, we will explore the bike rentals data set. Okay. And you could add more, okay? Sometimes we'll do this during session. Sometimes I'll go back and do it later, and I encourage you to go back and do it later so that your notebooks are always final and professional. Okay. One other thing that I tend to add later sometimes are comments, and I'll start to add some here because this can be a little tricky. We're going to cover a lot of Pandas material, and I'm going to build up to it a little bit so that you can try to understand it. Do note that this is not an introductory class in Pandas. We are covering some Pandas here, but if it's a little jarring for you, it's okay. It'll get better with time. You'll get used to it. And you can also consider checking out our introductory data science YouTube series. All right, so what are we going to use to clear null values? Well, we're going to use something quite frequently that it shows whether entries have null values. And this is basically the following code. It's df.isInA. Okay? It's got a parentheses after. Now, if you run it, go ahead and run it. Press Shift Enter. You see a bunch of falses. Like, this doesn't look particularly helpful, right? Presumably there are some trues in there, but this is not really the way to actually show them. It is, however, the key code that we are actually going to use. So, just to show you a next step on it, like, let's just write in the code. So df.isInA, you need the parentheses. And then I want to do .any. Okay, what this is going to indicate, are there any null values? Well, where? If I put an axis equals 1, what it's going to do is going to show the rows if there are any null values. Let's just run it and you'll see what I mean. So press Shift Enter. And it's now not showing the whole thing. It's showing by rows, but it's still showing that a lot of them are false, right? There aren't a bunch of null values in this data set. So there's only one last step to actually put it together to show the null values. I'll go ahead and say what this is. So it shows rows that have, it just shows whether rows have columns of null values. And shows whether rows have columns of null values. And finally, what we can do is we can put this as a condition inside of the data frame. And the way you do that is the following. You put df, and then inside the brackets, you can express any type of condition. For instance, I could say, you know what? I want to do the following condition. I want to only show, let's say, the seasons that are equivalent to 1. Okay? This is a condition, and I'm imposing it on the data frame. When you put a condition in brackets, it's going to limit the data frame to that condition. So let's see. I'll put the comment after. Let's see if it does what I think it should do. And it should be the case that if we look for season, that these are all ones. Now it looks like it's actually the same because I think they start and end on one. So if I try another one, like let's say 2, then you can see it now it's starting and ending in different places. It's only showing season number 2. So just to explain what this is in code, it's something we'll use from time to time. This is conditional formatting, and it reduces data frame to seasons that are equivalent to 2. Okay? So what we're going to do for the null values is we're actually going to put this in as our condition. And it's only going to deliver, you could say, the rows where actually the results are true. And as a result, we'll be able to see all the null values. So df bracket, did I copy it? I did. Don't necessarily want to write all that Python code again. This is a lot of Python code, right? And what it's doing is going to show basically null values, straight up. So you can just use this code straight out, press Shift Enter, and you can see we've got all the null values in here. We've got the wind speed. We've got, it looks like humidity here, and it shows you the actual entries. And I think that's kind of really important. Now, if you have a big, say, row, you could like show null value count by column, okay? And you do that using the following code. It's df.isInA. IsInA again .sum, so it's only going to sum the true cases. But recall that it was doing it kind of by row. So here what it does it by column. And maybe it shows you the number per column, but maybe you just want to get it like the total sum. Well, guess what? You can do another .sum method on that one. So it's df.isInA parentheses .sum parentheses .sum parentheses. We got a triple method going here. Show null value count. So there's actually another valuable line of code. And if you press Shift Enter to run it, we see that there are 12 null values total that we need to fix. We are going to fix them by column. Now, before we do that, I'm going to show you how to quickly do a subheader. Because we haven't actually cleaned them yet, what we've done is we've just like looked at how to show and count them. So to do a subheader, if I come up here, you enter another text cell. Instead of doing one hashtag, just do 2. And then I'll call this like show and count null values. Okay? Because that's what we're doing there. So if I press Shift Enter, what you should see is that it falls under the top one. It's a little close to the same size. You could use like a third hashtag if you want to make it a little smaller. But you can do as many subheaders as you want by using additional hashtags. And the reason why, of course, I'm going to do that is because next we're going to clean them and we're going to look at some different methods of cleaning them.